I find it interesting that genres of music can have a lasting effect on what people wear when some of these genres have started like 50 years ago. From the Beehive going for disco ball cowboy to rave music keeping people's outfits more vibrant than ever, there are so many genres and artists that have influenced what people wear. A movie that deals with this concept in part is SLC Punk, which was released in 1999, directed by James Marandino, and had costume designer Fiora Kirschbaum/Bose leading the wardrobe. The movie, which is set in Salt Lake City during the mid-80s, follows two punks trying to navigate the rat hole that they call life. The movie was great. I only just recently saw it, but I wanted to make a video on it and show how stylish these guys were, but also bring up the question, how accurate was this at portraying punk fashion? One thing that I found very interesting about this movie was that they didn't just show you punk fashion. They gave you a glimpse into other subcultures. After the punks, the mods had the most screen time, but their aesthetic was totally different from the punks. They went for a more sophisticated look with tailored garments like suits, as well as sweaters and trench coats for outerwear, but you guys didn't come here to talk about mods. Let's talk about some punks. So let's start off with Steve-O, the hard-headed punk that thinks he has life all figured out. Now, if you don't know, there's multiple subgenres of punk. There is anarchy punk, Celtic punk, pop punk, glam punk, street punk, hardcore punk, and a ton of others. And Steve-O was definitely influenced by the street punk scene. Now, a lot of Steve-O's outfits consisted of leather, as well as plaid, chokers layered on top of one another, spiked up dyed hair, and those are all elements of the street punk scene, and more specifically, the UK street punk scene. Now, throughout the movie, he also has a ton of graphic t-shirts that he wears, from music-themed t-shirts to these humorous drug t-shirts to like random miscellaneous ones, like this random one from a pub. Surprisingly, I don't think he actually wore a t-shirt that was from a band, or at least a well-known band. And I think there's multiple reasons for this. A, I don't think they wanted to get sued because their budget was small and I don't know if they could afford that. And B, I think they wanted to give it somewhat of a DIY feel to the shirts, which is very well known in the street punk scene. One of my favorite graphic tees was this white one layered underneath the thermal long sleeve. I thought it looked really good together. So both main characters end up wearing long johns due to the fact that they live in Salt Lake City and it is cold, and I think this accented their outfits really well. Back to the graphic t-shirt outfit, he also wore these red, white, and blue sweatbands that he wore with a lot of his outfits. Of course, he had the layered chokers. On bottom, he had some dark gray jeans and a white belt that had screen printed cartoon-looking bombs, which I thought was nice, a very cool detail. But yeah, that outfit was definitely one of my favorites. I love how his blue hair like really popped in this outfit and like kind of matched the colors of the graphic t-shirt or complemented it really well. So like I mentioned before, Steve-O wears a ton of plaid, whether that be on top or on bottom. Now his plaid trousers ranged from these slimmer fitting red tartan pants to a more toned down, relaxed trouser like this one. Now, something that I noticed was they didn't really follow the punk trend of wearing skinny jeans, especially for our main characters. A lot of what they wore was either somewhat slightly roomier or just not what I consider punk. And I wondered whether this was intentional or not. Now, Steve-O wears a plethora of tartan plaid suit jackets. Regardless if they fit well or not, it all looked good on him. Honestly, I think the slimmer fitting ones kind of accented his outfit and made it look even better. And these jackets were definitely an influence by the UK punk scene because punks were either wearing black leather jackets or denim jackets. I think a lot of the bright colors that Steve-O wore ended up being influences from the UK street punk scene. Personally, one of my favorite jackets is this orange tan colorway. I loved the fit of this, and I loved how he wore it over this graphic, which appears to be an ad for a drummer because it has some mystery man drumming and then on the bottom somebody's phone number. And side note, I also love the red lining on the jacket. I thought it looked very nice. On bottom are these multi-fabric pants with these leather reinforcements. And then on feet are these black leather boots, either Bover types or Doc Marten types. Now, of course he wears leather. He is a punk in the US, but it's not always the classic leather jacket that you're probably thinking of. He also wore jackets like this black leather notched collar one, which I thought was really nice, and this green patent leather one with this fur like collar. Personally, the green isn't my favorite, and I don't really know how punk it is. Now, he does wear the classic leather jacket that you're probably thinking of when you think punk, like this slimmer fitting one that I think is a classic cut, where it has the back gussets, the sleeve zippers, as well as has laced up sides. The jacket is cropped and really beaten up, which actually gives it a very nice look. But then the next piece is by far the most punk article of clothing in the movie, and it is this black leather jacket studded all throughout, writing all over it, most likely from local bands, and it is just a gorgeous piece. In this scene, he has even more jewelry on and an insanely high mohawk. And then again with the multi-fabric pants and those black boots. But something that isn't exactly punk, but accented the outfit really nice, was this printed 70s button-up that he had going on. I can't tell exactly what the print is, but it looks to be like a jockey or a man riding a horse, and I thought the shirt was a really nice standout piece and accented the outfit really well, but I just don't think it really fits punk fashion. Now, that wasn't the only 70s button-up that he wore. He also had this red and white diamond printed one that he wore with his black notched collar jacket, and then on bottom are these printed, slim-fitting, cropped pants with some black boots yet again. Now, when I look at this outfit, I don't really think of it as punk, but then again, I don't know what category I would put this outfit in if not punk. Now, throughout the movie, he wears a ton of pieces that aren't really considered punk, and one of the last outfits he's actually seen in, I don't think it's a punk outfit, but it is amazing. It is an almost all black outfit, and I loved this look. I loved how his hair popped so well with it, and I loved that racer jacket with just the hit of color with that, like, the rainbow stripes going down the right chest. I think it looked great, and I think this outfit as a whole was great. Now, Steve-O's partner in crime, Heroin Bob, was definitely a punk, but dressed very differently. Heroin Bob was more influenced by the hardcore scene with his military clothing, his track jacket, the flannels that he wore, but he was also influenced by the street punk scene with that mohawk of his. Almost the entire movie he's seen wearing this M51 field jacket with denim polos with safety pins, to flannels, to graphics, to thermals. He wore it with everything. But that wasn't the only military piece that he wore. He also had this OG 107 Type 3 jacket, or shirt, that he layered over a graphic t-shirt and these faded blue jeans that stacked so nicely on his boots. Those jeans looked so good on him, and they kind of remind me of like a pair of 424 jeans that Guillermo would have like made and worn, but these are definitely more authentic. The other time he wore it was with some cutoff fatigues, and speaking of cutoffs, he wore a ton of cutoff pants, from these fatigue ones to the blue denim jeans to these dark gray jeans to these black cotton twill ones. He wore them all cut off over long johns, and at first I wasn't a fan of this, but it grew on me and I loved all of these looks. Now, going back to graphics, Heroin Bob also wore a ton of graphic t-shirts, from random like fisherman bait shop ones to music themed shirts to other random t-shirts like this Tube TV graphic, which I really loved. I loved that one and this white one that you see here. We also see Heroin Bob in some 70s button-ups. The one that I liked the most was this short-sleeved one. It looked amazing with this all-over print landscape. Gorgeous. On bottom are a pair of these black cargos that was such a good fit and had really nice details. Also, side note, the cargos is definitely taken from the hardcore punk scene, because Dickies and cargos were seen throughout and are seen throughout the hardcore punk scene. And then of course on feet were those blue Doc Marten type boots. So for jewelry, he only ever wore a couple rings here and there and a thin choker. So very much so toned down compared to his buddy Steve-O. And before I move on from Heroin Bob, we need to talk about the raglan track jacket that he wore. This piece was awesome, from the anarchy symbol to the striping down the sleeve and shoulder to the writing on the back, which says like "Hater Hog" and something about men's clothing. It was all really cool. I loved this track jacket. I normally hate track jackets, but for some reason they paired it with random striped tee, and I did not like that at all. I didn't think it worked well, but what are you gonna do? Also on bottom, another 3 frames of those cargos. Bless them. So Steve-O and Heroin Bob weren't the only characters in this film that dressed really well. There were a ton of other characters that looked just as good. There was Sean, who was influenced by both the hardcore and street punk scene with his military fatigues, as well as his black belt with the metal O-rings, and I loved how he stayed with the SLC Punk look, layering a thermal long sleeve underneath a slim-fitted white t-shirt. Also, the orange leather mittens was a nice accent to the outfit. And then there was Mike, who was a punk but dressed preppy with his button-ups, polos, vests, cardigans, and khakis. A lot of his outfits didn't really work for me, but there were a couple that really piqued my interest. And then there was Eddie, who wasn't really a punk at all. He kind of dressed mod, but more like British than mod. I don't really know, but he had bleach blonde hair. He wore 70s button-ups under vests and cardigans, and then had this really nice green corduroy jacket that I thought was a really fun piece. The hat, not so much though. When he wasn't wearing that jacket, he was wearing this red leather one, which I thought was amazing looking. I loved the fat cuffs, and I loved the 70s button up underneath. Thought it looked great. And then lastly, we have Trish, whose versatility was just amazing. She could look like a dark overlord with her all black outfit and wig, or a girl cosplaying as a Martian with her purple pastel wig, green tops and dresses layered together, finished with a silver jacket, or she could go boho chic with her long brown hair, her long flowing skirt, as well as that wide notched collar jacket. But whatever she went with, it looked great on her. So I think there's two schools of thought when thinking about the accuracy of the film: ethos and fashion. If you want to look at it through the lens of ethos, then yes, they were 100% accurate, because although they might not dress like the traditional punks you're thinking of, they did not conform to their society, nor did they conform to the subculture that they were in. And what's more punk than not conforming to the non-conformers? But if you want to look at it through the lens of fashion, then I think this movie was a mixed bag. I really liked how they took influences from different subcultures within punk, like the hardcore scene and the street punk scene. But I think there were some pieces, and a decent amount of them, that just didn't really exactly fit the Venn diagram of what punk is. Examples of this are some of the jackets that Steve-O wore, and the fact that there weren't really many skinny jeans, if any at all, in this film. And then comes the question, was this intentional or not? And to be honest, I have a hard time answering that question. I've been going back and forth with it, and I don't really know. I know that this movie was accurate to a certain degree. Just what that degree is, I'm not 100% sure. But what do you guys think? Were they accurate? Were they not? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're doing that, like the video, subscribe, share it with a friend. That would mean a ton to me. Follow me on my socials. It's all linked down below. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I post fashion and costume design stuff. That is going to be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.